This is Marshall Lee of DonkeyJobProjects.com, and today we are going to talk about how to make money as a freelance artist and what is holding you back from it. Today I have Mr. Samax Amen once again. We've had him on the show before. How you doing, man?
Excellent, excellent.
Awesome.
It's a bright and sunny morning, and I have air conditioning, so I'm good to go.
That's always a good thing, and you're in Texas, right? So
yes,
nice
sir.
and warm there.
where it will be summer all the way until about November. We'll continue to be summer till mid-November.
We've been going through the fluctuations of hot and cold lately up in chilly New England. So cool. So we're gonna talk about how to make a living as a freelance artist, and we've touched on this before, but we went more specifically into comic strips. This time we're gonna go a little bit more general. First of all, where can people find you, Samax?
Okay, so the best thing in the world to do is just go to starvingartistsanonymous.com. Everything that we're talking about, that we're going to talk about today, I generally blog frequently. You can sign up for an email list. If you just want to see my art and you're like, I don't care about your advice about that stuff, probably the best thing and the easiest thing to do is Samax Amen, like on Facebook. And then I have a business page that's Samax Amen. And the photo section, you can go straight to the photo section, skip all my blah, blah, blah by just looking at photos on Facebook. I have a website or whatever, but I update Facebook about 100 times more than I do my website. And obviously I have Instagram, but I don't really update that nearly as much as the Facebook. So you want the bang for your buck, especially if your buck is zero, then Facebook is going to be your best bet.
Awesome. And I definitely suggest that. There's a bunch of links for Samax in the description that you can check out. And I definitely recommend his art and his advice on art business, because both of those things are just awesome.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, man. So I got one big question we'll start off with, and then we're going to lead into some very interesting things. Is it possible to make a good, successful living as a freelance artist?
Yes. There's actually lots of ways to make a living as an artist or whatever. I would say the fastest way to get from not making any money with art to making money with art is freelancing, because it focuses on something that doesn't cost you that much. And then it's like you're living off of the money that other people already have. So as opposed to like if you like have your own art and stuff and you sell your drawings or whatever, or your paintings or whatever, then you have to do the work first and then get paid. But with freelancing, if you have the audacity to ask people for money, you get paid and then you do the work that they need. So it's the fastest way. I wouldn't say that anybody that you should just only do that, but and we'll get into like why that is. But yeah, so I'm not the only person that'll tell you that. If you look into it, freelancing is going to be the fastest way to make money with your art skills.
Awesome. So we'll just kind of paint a little scenario here to really kind of get it going. But there's kind of this thing a lot, everybody watching this, I shouldn't say everybody, some people are writers, but this goes for writers as well. Anybody who's doing a creative thing, you're an illustrator, a writer, or whatever it is you're into, photography, whatever creative thing you do. And obviously it kind of starts off as something you love, something that's a hobby. Generally, most people don't get into it for the money. There's better things you can do for money initially, without having to build such a large amount of skill before you even get into it. So you go into it, you're into it like a hobby. Next point where you're like, hey, this is actually pretty good. People are liking what I'm doing and stuff like that. Maybe I can make a career out of this. So you're like, okay, you're this wide-eyed like illustrator, writer, photographer, whatever it is you are. And, you kind of hear some of these things on the internet or wherever, do what you love and the money will follow, great promise. I think there's some wisdom in that, but there's also a bit of a pitfall. Also, this whole thing of like, if you do good art, then it will sell itself, things like that. So you go out into the world of freelance, and you're like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to make this happen. And you enter into this world, and you're like, okay, but where do I find this work? How am I going to make money at this? I want to quit my job, or I just quit my job, and I'm trying to do this thing, which is kind of a crazy way to go. But some people make it happen. And then you find some clients, and you start working with people, and you've put out this interesting document recently, this book about some of the pitfalls that people fall into, some of the kind of the mindset that artists have. And I saw this one section where I'm like, now this is something I've heard before. I've listened to a lot of podcasts by illustrators and artists and creative people and people who try to do freelance, and I've heard the complaints many times. And when I read this part of your book, I was like, you know what? We're going to talk about this, because I heard it so much, to the point where I decided at one point, I don't want to be a freelance illustrator or whatever it is. I don't want to go into freelance because it sounds like it's a horror show.
Right.
And so I hear, these are some of the complaints I hear. Clients, they want you to work for exposure as a substitute for pay. There's also, they will underpay or pay late, or they don't pay at all. These are that's right from your book. They micromanage. They want to tell you how to do your job. And there's a lack of respect, and these are very common things that we come up against as freelance illustrators. So you go in wide-eyed as this person who's like got skill and wants to make this happen, and you come to find out it's not so easy. What would you say to somebody who's coming up against these things?
Yeah, so most of those things, okay, so the first thing that I would say is that if you go into to being an artist in general, and especially if you're freelancing and you're thinking of it like, there's a word that came out, career. Thinking of it as a career is already putting you behind the eight ball. Because unless somebody just hires you, you can go somewhere, get a job, generally like graphic designer, or you go work at, if you're one of the like lucky people that gets a job at Disney, or you go and get a job somewhere where you sit at it, where they have a desk for you to sit at and you do your art. I actually did that. I had a job working for a e-learning company on an animation team. I'm not an animator, but that's another long story. And so it was my job. I mean, they took out taxes and everything. But generally speaking, I think that artists should not primarily think of themselves as an employee. They should think of themselves not as having a career, but as having a business. That's something that is a very kind of people don't like that word, but I mean, I think that a lot of the problems that happen are because if you have an employee mindset, then every client you get will treat you like an employee, because you're going to project a lot of ways of thinking that leads to people not valuing you. So a lot of the things that you described, the first thing that you should do is you should just not try to win people over on price. If you're like super cheap and you're like basically offering yourself the exact same way that everybody else is, you're commoditize yourself, like you're making yourself into a can of soup. They go to Walmart and look for a can of soup and they're just going to get the cheapest one. So that, like, it's funny because the stuff about like people want me to work for free, the stuff about people want me to work for exposure, people want me to work for cheap. I've been freelancing now like 20 years, you know what I mean? And it's still, people still do it. I just don't you know, when people come to me with that, the answer is no. Like, no is a powerful word, and you have the right to use it. You know, when people, because what you're doing is valuable. You know, there's a, but it starts with your mindset. You know, people are gonna ask. I mean, like, it's like if you're a girl, you know, guys are gonna want to sleep with you as quickly as possible. That's not gonna stop happening ever. You know, your wife. Go ask your wife. She's married. If she has a job with any men, men are like throw themselves at her every day. She decided to get married and to be loyal to you. You know what I mean? And even before she got married, I'm sure she was loyal to her own self. That everybody that threw their self at her didn't get to have. And it's the same thing with your work. Because you love what you're doing and because you're in, you know, this society that doesn't really value what you're doing, um, that's going to happen, you know, but it's not an alarm bell to pull. I mean, it starts with how you value yourself and how you present yourself as, um, you know, like if you just value yourself. I'm not telling people I take a lot of stuff and they'll turn it into arrogance. And some of those problems are coming from the fact that you're being arrogant. You know what I mean? Instead of, so on the one hand, you have, oh wow, that fixed it. On the one hand, you have people that are like don't value themselves, but then you have people who are so arrogant and make a lot of promises and, you know, claims of how wonderful they are. Oh, if you hire me, these things are going to happen. And then when they don't, then the client, you know, is like a lot of the issues that are coming up once you have the client and they're doing like micromanaging behaviors and, you know, a lot of the behaviors you described, it's because they don't trust you. So as an artist, artists are very quick with excuses. You know what I mean? Like when they say they're going to, you know, I miss lots of deadlines. A lot of my my clients are, if they're watching or whatever, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I never missed any deadline. You have to man up to it. Be like, I missed this deadline, and what, you know, how am I gonna make up for the fact that I made a promise that I didn't keep? You know, so I think the first thing though is for people that are having difficulties with not being valued by clients is you should really look at the way that you are facing the public. Like, how do you talk, you know, on social media and things like that? Do you talk like you're struggling, you're getting ready to die? Do you, when you're looking to get someone to hire you, do you put forward your financial problems, like to try and get sympathy out of them so that they'll pay you, or, you know, that they'll hire you in the first place, and then so that they'll pay you what you're asking? Do you present it like it's your problems are a reason why they should do what you want? Because that's just setting up the wrong things. Look, your work is probably worth what you're asking for. You know what I mean? If you're asking for more than what it's worth, that's not really that big of an emergency. You know, people ask for more than their work is worth. Sometimes it is not a big deal. You know, so it, as one of the things that I say in the book is that the number one pastime of freelancers is complaining about clients. And I love to complain about clients. We could do a whole episode just complaining about funny things that clients do. One of the things that happens is people who are like you, who don't want to work for clients because of freelancers that just complain or whatever. But the thing to keep in mind is that every relationship is made of at least two people, and you're probably doing things that causes clients to not trust you, to not, you know, give you the, I mean, the best. I have clients that they would, one of the things that you said one time when we were talking is that it's hard to tell, like when I'm talking about a project that I'm working on, if it's mine, you know, like I'm self-publishing or whatever, or if it's a client. And the reason for that is because I take ownership of everything I do. I take responsibility for anything with my name on it. And that'll get you a long way to clients loving you and wanting to pay you. and wanting to, if you say, well, I need a little bit more money, and they're like, well, okay. Now clients are transactional, so they're gonna be like, well, why? So you can't go, oh, never mind. You have to go, well, I mean, I'm doing this and this and this, and this isn't even something that you asked for me to do, but I'm doing these things, or I'm able to do them. You might say, well, I can add this to the service that I'm providing for you. If you like to be on social media and big up the things that you're working on, make sure that the client knows that, and that you are, going to drive traffic, because a lot of artists will not do nothing, like that. They're just like, well, I don't get paid I don't care if the book succeeds or not. I'm here for my money, and the attitude that you have, and, or, the flip side, as much as I talk about the ins and outs and the ups and downs, I defy you to tell me what client I told you that I had a complaint about, and I said this, and Samax said this client was this and this, because I don't do that. I don't, even with my clients, I'll say something in passing in my email, and the client will be like, whatever. I was like, yeah, I wasn't even talking about you, but if you feel like you're doing something wrong, that's cool. Because I just don't do that. I don't like, sometimes a client will do that to me, and they'll say something about, oh, Samax did this, and, on Facebook or whatever, and I don't like it, and I will definitely consider not working with that client anymore, because that's childish. But, so part of it is just be a grown adult in the way that you handle yourself. And again, think of yourself as a business, like, say, well, do businesses put themselves in the public this way? Or do employees like take off their hat at the end of the day and then go out and act crazy on social media and then get fired anyway? You know what I mean? Like, because that's the era we're in. You get fired for something you said on Twitter or Facebook. So a lot of those problems, I think, come about ourselves. It's really not, if not totally self-inflicted, we are more responsible for our results than we like to think. If you're struggling and failing, and your way of looking at it is always, well, companies are greedy and clients are greedy and this is that and blah, blah, blah. There are greedy clients out there. There are terrible clients out there. There are people who don't, it's a spectrum. So sometimes it's just, they don't understand, why they should pay for something. And of course they don't want to pay, you try and get discounts, or you wait for stuff to go on sale, so that's what they want. They want everything as cheap as they get it. You need to make them understand that paying for it is to their benefit, because you can provide a better service if you're charging, you're getting paid for it, than you can if you're doing it free. And not only that, but doing it cheap, you're going to do a better job if you're getting paid more money, because of the psychology that you as a human being, like, there's all kinds of things that, like secondary consequences of you not having enough money. If somebody pays you, I've had months, even recently, where I was making so much money that I didn't have no worries. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like when you're getting paid more money, you're not, sweating bullets over your electric bill or your water bill. You're not sweating bullets over your, what you're going to do, what your kid's going to do. You're chilling, or, you're not feeling bad because your friends are going to the movies and you can't afford it. You're not feeling bad. You're feeling awesome. Yeah. Now, you got to be responsible with your money or whatever. That's a whole different situation. But anyway.
Yeah, I think there's so many things that you're kind of saying in there that remind me of stuff that was in your book. And, I just think there's just so much. Like, I think a big theme that I read in your book, and if for everybody who's curious, there is a link in the description. I think it's the first link I put, and there's a book that Samax wrote called #Freelancing Fail: 6 types of freelancers that never succeed. Now it sounds negative, but that's kind of like it's showing you the things that people struggle with. And like I kind of put in my thing here. You know, it's how to make money as a freelance artist and what's holding you back, because there's a lot of people trying to do this, but there's things holding us back, that there's ways we can kind of navigate through in a better way. And you know, so one thing I'm hearing in what you're saying that I think was really interesting is taking responsibility. People don't realize how powerful taking responsibility is. And there was something that you put in the book that I really like. It says, it was a quote from your mom, I guess, and she said, "It doesn't matter whose fault it is; it matters whose problem it is." And that's
Right.
the thing. As illustrators, as artists, as creative people, writers, whatever, we're not, you know, we're not necessarily in the business of the photography. We're not in the business of the illustration. We're in the business of solving a problem for a client. We're
Right.
trying
Right.
to help them. So we have to try to look at things from their perspective if we want to help them, you know?
Yeah, I think there's nothing more powerful than taking responsibility. One of my favorite, I guess you could call him, like, well, he's a psychology professor, I think, but I mean, like, he's really like kind of functioning as a philosopher, I think, right now, and that's Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is big on responsibility, way more than I am. You know, like he almost makes it like where bad people can do whatever they want, and you can't be mad at them. You know, like a lot of people who are like jerks, like try and quote Jordan Peterson, you know, to say that you shouldn't be mad at me because it's your responsibility for the fact that I just slapped you or whatever. But so that's too far. But one of the things that he says, and I quote him like more than once, like in my emails or whatever, because I just think he's just taking responsibility is really powerful. And one of the things that he says is all the people that we admire are people who take responsibility onto their shoulders. You know, our whole like popular culture is about heroes, even if they're bad people. You know, they looked at, you know, a monster and they killed it. You know what I mean? They were in a football or a basketball game and they are injured and they go back out there and play anyway and they win a championship on a bad knee. You know, they obviously, like my favorite, superhero, Spider-Man. You know, what is it? You know, great power and great responsibility. One of the great axioms of our time. You know what I mean? Ways to understand like the whys and how, of what should I do, and what you should do is you should take on the mantle of your own life and your own business. And if you're at a job, your own career. I mean, this is something that I put into effect even when I was an employee. Every job interview, I would go in and I would say, look, I do my job. I sit at this, if I'm, a telemarketer or I drive a forklift or whatever I do, I take everything that's assigned to me becomes my business, and I do it that way. And that's a person that doesn't need a whole lot of supervision. That's a person who doesn't need a whole lot of, you got to go behind and check their work all the time because they want to do excellent, And I mean, as a person who is a lifelong underachiever, and I am, and I've been that, one of the most powerful things that's happening in my life is that I'm just like, you know what, I want to find what my potential is. I want to enjoy my life and everything. So I'm not going to do it, pathologically, but I want to find out like how much can I accomplish? How much money can I make? How good can I be to the people in my life? And not just be lazy about when I have a problem. Like, can I do anything about this? And I think that like that's one of the things that if you take responsibility, one, your clients, I mean, like, especially if you work for businesses, which I recommend, doing that as much as you can. But even like, if you work for somebody that like me or you, who, because you're running a business, whether you think of it that way or not. If somebody comes and works for you and they're a person who comes to you like one business who's offering services to another business, that's a whole different kind of, like, it's like, you know, that you can give somebody something and you could just leave it to them, you know, leave them to it. And I mean, businesses like that. And that's why people want to hire me, you know. Obviously, I mean, I'm good at drawing or whatever. But there's definitely people that are good, you know, that are good enough, but they can't get nobody to touch them, because especially people that own a business, like, they have so many things to worry about because they're taking responsibility for other people. Like, when you start paying people, you're taking responsibility for other people's lives. And so they don't want any more responsibility. They have so many things they're worried about. So if you act like, and especially like if you project a victim, like you project yourself into the world as a victim, they're gonna be like, I don't, you know, that person's dope or whatever. I like what they do, but you know, even subconsciously, they'll be like, yeah, let me keep looking, you know, or they're always trying you out, you know what I mean? So they're not trying to make a whole lot of investment into you because they don't know when or where or if they'll ever get that investment back. And so, thinking like a business, you start trying to think of ways to make yourself more valuable. I mean, look, I'm right now, like, my thing that I'm always doing is like, okay, sure, they like it, but do they value it? Because people pay for what they value. Like, you know, it's like social media and stuff like that, like, get you high on likes. It's not a service to you. It's because of, you know, they know that that'll keep you on their platform. So it's like, how do you transfer, like, even in your relationships with your fans, like, giving your fans something they like versus giving them something that they value so that they're in their pocket already, you know. And that's a subtlety that is not easy to tease out in your own work sometimes, which is a good reason to do like coaching or something like that. But, or even just to have, you know, groups of friends who are all like business people. So they're like, look, you know, that's great, but I don't know, people ain't gonna pay me for that. You know what I mean? Or people not gonna buy it. You know, you can make a comic, you can put it out as a web comic, and you can do that for years. And then whenever you have and you got like all these fans that you think are, you know, down for you, and then you say, hey, well, you know, I got my Kickstarter, and they don't want to do it because it's like, well, they like you, it's polite, you know, like, oh, that's nice, you know, but they don't value you, you know. And sometimes turning a person who doesn't, you know, who is determined to never buy from you into a person that buy, that's an alchemy that's not worth doing. So if you put yourself out there as, you know, that I provide value, and you just really try and you say, and by the way, you know, you can buy this, you know, like, you say all that, you use a language of that I'm in business, not that this is just a hobby, and, you know, you don't have to pay me ever, you know, I'll just give it to you free forever, you know, and if you ever come to my house, I'll give you a copy of the book just because, oh, I appreciate you, you know. That, you know, thinking like that and talking like that, it's like you categorize yourself to people, and that's a category that's hard to get out of.
Yeah, there's so many things for sure.
Take responsibility for your sales. Take responsibility for it. It's okay to say, hey, I want money. Everybody has a job. I mean, unless they're like Bruce Wayne and they, you know, was just born to privilege, and they know that, and their parents give them a trust fund or whatever. Everybody and people that's that wealthy, they already know the game. So it's like, you know, it's okay to be in business, you know, as an artist. It's a long tradition, you know. Me and Marshall did a whole video about it. You can go listen to.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's the thing is like, you know, I think it's interesting because like one thing we talked about with the comic strip thing was, you know, I liked how when I was asking like how do you find clients and stuff like that, and how do you like use comic strips as something you can sell or whatever to a client, and you were talking about like this whole thing of like when you approach a client, don't necessarily get into this thing of like, hey, look, I make comics. I'd like to make some for you. Do you have
Right.
any, it was more, well, let me talk to you about your business. What do you do in your business? What kind of things are you having trouble with? Where,
Mhm.
and you're trying to find out where you can actually help them, and
Right.
then you take what you already know how to do and apply that as a solution to the problems that they're expressing to you.
Right.
Uh, and it's a whole different way of going about things, and it leads into something else I wanted to talk about, which is this theme you put in your book about empathy.
Yeah.
uh, and I think
Yeah.
it's huge, like this whole thing of like trying to and I actually looked up the definition, or actually no, I think you put it in your thing. There was like a definition of empathy, and it's like basically what empathy is putting yourself in the shoes of the other person.
Hmm.
And one other note I want to say on empathy is, I always have been affected by like what Gary Vaynerchuk talks about, and one of my favorite things in his first book, Crush It, he had, I think it was chapter 9. I actually looked it up at chapter 9. And what was it? It was here, let me look it up because I already have
Hmm.
it sitting here. Okay, chapter 9. The best. I'm gonna read this whole chapter to you right now.
Yeah, it's all good.
Watch it. Chapter 9. The best marketing strategy ever. And this is the chapter. Care. That
Hmm.
period.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
end. You
Yeah.
know, if you just care, for the people you're working with, if you actually, and it can't be BS, you have to like
Right.
actually give a crap, you will go further in business than you can imagine. Just have that empathy, try to see things from their perspective.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, one of the, like I said, that's why and in writing the book or whatever, I address like where as a freelancer you might be going wrong. You know, I address that because you can't control like other people out in space. You can control yourself. If you want different results, you can't change like what the laws are, or you can't change what, who has money. Like they have money because of their own activities, you know. Even like I was dealing with a lot of people who couldn't afford to pay, and I used to get really frustrated because I like poor people. You know what I mean? I like doing stuff for, you know, and so making money from my fan base that isn't wealthy or that has a lot of struggles, I couldn't make them have the money that I wanted. you know Now, what I could do, because not having enough money is almost always an excuse, even if you sell something that's very expensive. Not, I can't afford it is not literally true almost ever. And I mean, as a person who I bought like $1,000 training program when I was completely broke. Tony Robbins, he said it's not about your resources, it's about your resourcefulness. And do you want this? He's like, I'm not gonna, if you don't want it enough to go figure out how to get it. And I mean, most of the time when I would be selling products or even like selling comics, like at a convention, right, or something like that, and the person would say, well, I don't have any money, or um, I don't know, I can't afford it. It's because they're choosing something else. They're choosing something else, and ultimately, if you're going to spend a lot of time angry about that, the next thing you should do, because being angry at people, that's fun or whatever. So I'm not going to take it away from you, but you should spend some time saying, how could I make this so valuable for what I'm asking for, that they would just be like, well, let me just buy it, and if they don't, I'll just buy it. And that's the thing where I think people don't try and offer value. Now that doesn't mean work harder. it totally does not mean work harder. Okay, I don't want you guys to think that I'm trying to teach you to wear yourselves out and wear yourselves thin. But empathy is easy. Like, it's not hard work to like, that's why you said that one word chapter. It's not hard to care. First thing you might need to be like, man, I really don't care. Like, and just kind of the first step, is always admitting you have a problem. And so, like, that's the thing. If you're always blaming everybody else for your situation, you haven't admitted that you have a problem yet. You can't fix a problem that you don't have. Or you're not willing to admit that you have a problem. Blaming is whack. Like, blaming other people for your situation is whack, and that doesn't mean that other people don't have a role in it. But chances are you have more power than you think, and you've been trained to think like an employee or whatever. And for an employee, coming up with a good excuse is gold. You know what I mean? Because you already, you got your job, you're late for work, you're late on a project, something isn't working that you made and it was supposed to do a thing and it doesn't do it. Coming up with an excuse to point the problem solving, wrath of your employer elsewhere is like a very valuable solution for you in an employee mindset. But I'm going to tell you something, that even as an employee, if you learn how to take more responsibility, you will increase your value to your employer. And if you have a good employer, they will notice it and offer you promotions and offer you money, more money or whatever. If you have a regular or bad employer, you can probably still wrangle more money and stuff out of it, because it's just a matter of that person that you're looking at, they are doing what they're doing because it solves their problem to do that. And that's one of the things with empathy with your employers or with, other people. And again, empathy is not like being a martyr to other people's needs and problems. Like, you have to have empathy. You have to take care of yourself too. You're your most valuable asset. But empathy is good for business. It's not just like, throwing yourself on grenade for your employer, or being a slave and giving them a great deal all the time and not getting a great deal too. Every negotiation should end with a win for everybody. If it doesn't, it will get blown up quickly, because people will walk away and say, you know what, I was manipulated. So you definitely want to make good deals. But if you put empathy at the core of what you're doing, real like empathy, not like you said, like Marshall said, you can't fake it. If you're everybody, especially business owners, like they have BS detection machines or whatever, and if they smell it, they're just gonna. The thing about it is, a lot of times they'll still do the deal, but then they'll do it from a position of, he thinks he's going to take advantage of me. Watch this. And the wording will be such that, and you're an artist, so you don't notice that they're hustling you, because you was trying to get over, and they, so I don't recommend that. All you do is, one, start picking the people that you work with. That'll help, because again, like you were alluding to before, people are real passive and they just want everything to come to them. And a lot of the people that come to you is a predator, because if you're just laying around being available, a lot of people that come, they come as a predator. That's where you get that, well, for exposure and for, this or that, or I'll give you something that isn't of no value, or playing off the fact that you're going to be too polite to say no, or too polite to turn down something that's not a good deal. People are very nervous about negotiating and stuff like that. And I mean, you're looking at somebody that does not like negotiating. I like to just be like, look, this is what it is. And then people come back, well, how about this? Or like, if I agree to a deal, and then I'll call them back later and go, nah, you know what? I don't want to do that. And people will be like, wait, no, but whatever. And I'm like, look, this is why that's not fair for me. I have to like become a man at some point. I might be like, oh, well, that's okay. And then before, then I come back, oh, no. I don't want to do that, because it kicks in. So you're going to have empathy, but you're also, you have your own concerns, and you can make choices for yourself. But yeah, if you read the book, you're going to find empathy is a big uh, a core value to being successful in business. Not just freelancing, but in business. If you can master empathy, because empathy isn't like, oh, it's not just like, I'm I'm gonna give everybody a good deal, and they always make a good deal, and then I don't get what I need, and martyrdom. It's not that. It's looking at, it's like McDonald's sells a lot of hamburgers because they understand what they need to say to you to make you buy a hamburger, what they need to show you. That you go to the good McDonald's, and they have that jungle gym outside. They got, it's still inside, but it's like got slides and tubes you can crawl around in or whatever. Little kids, that's awesome. You think they have that? How do you think they thought of it? They're like, what can we do to keep our customer at McDonald's? How many times have you went to McDonald's with your kid and you bought, or with kids or whatever, and you bought, whatever you went to buy, and then y'all were there for like 3 hours, so you wound up buying ice cream, you bought an extra drink, you bought an extra whatever. That didn't happen by accident. And don't feel like McDonald's cheated you to rob you of your money. No, McDonald's used empathy to get what they wanted. They're like, man, how can we get people to buy? I'm sure McDonald's is the one that invented the drive-through. It wasn't because, they just, oh, well, we know people are in a hurry, and it sure would be nice to offer everybody so they don't have to get out of the car. It's like, yes, somebody said, what if, people are in a hurry and they want to buy food on their lunch break, and they want to buy food on their way to work, on their way home from work. What if we made it where they could buy food without even getting out of the car? We could sell, and they were in a boardroom somewhere. We could sell 10 times more and blah, 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 blah. Now, at the core of that was somebody who had empathy, who mastered it, and who said, I can think like my customer. What is my customer thinking about? You need to try and figure out, what is the people you want to work for? What are they thinking about? And throw away the stuff that doesn't got nothing to do with what you can do. You know what I mean? Because artists do that and immediately like, well, everybody wants somebody that draws like Jim Lee, and I can't draw like Jim Lee, so nobody's going to hire me. No, I'm talking about your audience, the people who will like your stuff, the people who will buy your stuff. Who are you that will, whatever you are good at communicating, the people who are drinking that Kool-Aid, what do they want? What is bothering them that they can't, get around? The reason, it's not an accident that all the complaints about clients that people have, that I address, like, why do clients do that? And what do you do about it? It's in there because I practiced empathy. Instead of hating them, oh, I hate these people, they're a bunch of losers, and they're crooks, and they're trying to rob me. Don't work for anybody that you think is a crook, but don't. So, okay. You know what an action script is? Like, if you're in, Photoshop or Illustrator, and it's a button you press, and then the program just does a bunch of stuff.
Yep.
A lot of times, being good at freelancing or being successful in business at all, and being successful as an artist is taking control of those action scripts in your head, that when something happens, triggers you, and then you start thinking a whole bunch of thoughts and a whole bunch of ideas. These ideas, and this is psychology, right? So those ideas are not you. Like, those thoughts are not you. This, again, taking responsibility, right? If you're having thoughts that they're not helping you, you should probably just stop having them. You know what I mean? And that's a journey or whatever, but it's like, you start to know, you need to notice that you get triggered into cycles of, just action scripts that just start running and doing stuff, and then next thing you know, you have a result you didn't want. So one thing you can do is you can stop, you could say, look, people who have more money than me, people who are more successful than me, all the way up to somebody that's a billionaire, that does not automatically mean that they're a bad person. A person who asks me for something in a way that I don't want to do it, or that is not a good deal for me, I don't need to think of them as a bad person. So you need to set up scripts that help you. And a script that can really help you is if you set up a script of when you encounter somebody that is saying something to you, that you could tell that they're, okay, so exposure, right? Or I'm offer you, $5 a page or whatever, whatever. So your action script should not be this. No way, man. I'm out of here. Whatever. No, and do that if it's fun for you. It's fine. Being outrageous is a lot of fun, but it might help you to also have one that you can at least press a button and kick in that says, this is how I educate a person, why it's better for them to not be running around trying to get people for exposure all the time, or why they probably shouldn't be doing that. Now, the thing is, there are people who accept that deal all the time, who are like, wow, I need exposure, and they take it. And that's okay. There are people who are there's a website called Fiverr where there's nothing but artists doing everything that you need to get a living wage for. You need $100, you need $300 or $500 to do it, and they'll do it for $5 or $25. That's never going away. DeviantArt, people on there's people all over that joint doing stuff for nothing, who could draw better than you, draw better than me, and they do it for nothing. It's never going to go away.
Yeah.
There's reasons why I don't recommend anybody to hire like that, but if they need to, like, it takes more to get a good result out of somebody that you're paying very little or that's doing it for free or not free. And my clients already know that. But if people come to me and they don't know that, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna save you some headaches. And if you're gonna work with people that barely get paid, here's the things that you're going to need to be prepared to do to keep that person on task, and if that's who you want to be, then that's where you need to go. Here, you go to Fiverr, go to DeviantArt, look for these people like this. Please go and don't bother anybody else that's trying to be a professional. Mm. Or if you can find somebody in a third world country that will do this for you, and you want to wake up at, in the middle of the night when you need to talk to that person on the phone because they're on the other side of the world, then you should do that. And you want to deal with the fact that they don't understand any of your cultural references, and that if you put something in a script, it might come back like anything because they don't know what that means. Then do that or whatever. It's fine. If you want to hire a 7th grader, who doesn't need money because they live under somebody else's roof, who is happy for them to be there and who is just excited that they're doing something, then do that. I mean, it doesn't hurt me that people are cheap or that they don't understand the value of what I do. Because there are people who do understand the value of what I do. And so, like, that's when, when you talk to me about, like, client getting methods and marketing and, email lists and not cold calling, but like cold emailing and doing all kinds of different things. And people are like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm like, man, I'm looking for the real people, the people that I want to work for. I don't worry about the people I don't want to work for. I'm glad that they identify themselves quickly. So I can just be like, look, I educate people. That is my action script with them people right now is like, here's where you need to go. Or here's like, you need to get up on this level before you mess with me. And please don't go to my friends. So do you know anybody? No. You should go to Fiverr. You should go to Upwork. You should go to places like this. You can get good results. You're going to have to be a manager You know, if you want to pay people minimum wage or less, you have to be a manager. You have to be like a, you know, parole officer and everything else. Like I don't. So that's taking responsibility. That's like, and just looking at them like, look, you know, a person who is trying to find a creative team to work with them, and like a writer, or like even an artist who's looking for a writer. We like to like, oh, writers are always asking me to draw for free, but artists don't mind asking writers to write for free. You know what I mean? Like, and so, you know, the artists think we have more value than writers or whatever. So it's like, if you want to collaborate with somebody, you want to partner with somebody, that's a totally different situation. Um, Keeping that in mind, and I say that, you know, like if partnering with somebody to work on something, you know, y'all are gonna share in the profits or whatever gains that there are. But I'm also, anybody that hears that and thinks that they're gonna approach me to partner with them, the first thing I'm gonna find out is like, how are you gonna, if you can't make money, like if you making money doing stuff, then I believe that if we partner together, we'll make money, because I make money doing stuff. If you make money doing stuff, then, you know, money times money is money squared, right? But a lot of people that approach me because I'm decent at what I do, and they think that they will, and I used to have an angry response, but now I don't. They think that they can't make money, like let's say a writer. They think that being a writer by itself, you can't make any money. But if I get an artist, because everybody wants artists, because you always think what you don't have is the secret to your success. And so if I get an artist, then I'll be able to make money. Or, you know, they see that I do a lot of marketing stuff. They go, oh, well, I'll get an artist that can do marketing, and then, you know, da da da. And I'm like, well, if you think that you can't make money writing, then that's a red flag. I already know that we're not going to make any money unless I go out and get the money, in which case, legitimately, like, what do I need you for? You know, because writers make money. Like, writers make a lot of money. Like, it's the same thing like with artists. People like, oh, well, you know, people say it as just kind of off the cuff. Well, you know, it's hard to make money with art. What? No, it isn't. It's not. You know, the reason why it's hard for artists to make money is because all they're doing is making art. They're over somewhere. I mean, I used to joke and say, you know, when I was a kid, I thought, you know, I was gonna be sitting in a bookstore somewhere drawing on a napkin, and Stan Lee was gonna look over my shoulder and say, "Excelsior, you're hired." But it doesn't work like that. It never has. It never will. We like these mythologies about, you know, how people, the rock star mythologies, you know, we like that. But you know what? You know how like the Rolling Stones sell records and sell out shows because they got a manager. You know what a manager does? Manager's a salesman. You know, a manager makes sure that they do the work that they need to do to get things done. You know, a manager takes responsibility. You know how you get a manager? You take responsibility. Because you know what? You can't just say, oh, you know, artists sit around, oh, I wish I just had an agent. You know, that's the thing. I wish I had an agent who would just sell my art and sell my books or whatever. You know how you get an agent? You already got to be making money. You know,
yeah.
The best thing you could do, one of the early Starving Artists Anonymous like blog posts I wrote was, just because you like sex doesn't mean you would make a good prostitute. And and one of the things that it's like, and it's great, you should read it. But if the thing is that you need a pimp if you want to be a prostitute, you know, you can't do it. You know, you're gonna go. The predators are gonna come and they're gonna eat you alive unless you really, you know, you're a hard prostitute. You know, which maybe you are. But that doesn't mean you need to get pimped, because obviously being pimped sucks. What you need is to hire a pimp. You know, or you need to start out. You need to be your own pimp. You need to hire a pimp. You need to, you know, what is the word? You know, delegate, automate, eliminate. You know, so you're going to automate the tasks and delegate them to other people, and then the things that can be eliminated out of it, you're going to cut the fat out of your business. That's you know, the way that you do it. You hire somebody to be a manager. If you should be thinking like, how can I pay to get somebody to do the tasks I don't want to do? how can I pay to get automations that will do the tasks that I, or make it easier for me to do them. Take responsibility. Now, are you going to do it as good as somebody who's a manager, or these guys that sell original art for the artists? Can you sell your original art as good as they can? You're probably not be as good, but you're going to care more about your sales. And then you can, when people start approaching you, you can say, does this person have empathy for me? Do they care? They want to manage me. They work for me. And so anyway, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, plus when you approach it that way, you have more knowledge now.
Yes.
I could hire, if I were in a position to hire people to work on my comic company, I could probably do that pretty well because, I know how to draw a comic. I know how to ink a comic. I know how to color a comic. I know how to write a comic. I know how
Right.
to letter a comic. I know how to market a comic. Like I've played all these roles. So
Mhm.
now I know who's a good candidate when I'm like, you know
Right.
what? I enjoy coloring, but not as much as somebody who really enjoys it. I want to hire somebody who does it really well, and I can help that. And when they come to me and talk to me about flatting, I know what flatting is. I can tell.
Right.
I can give them some direction.
Well, so that's a very good example of like how, because it's like I tell people all the time, I think in black and white. I produce a lot of color stuff, but if it was up to me, I know the value of good colorists. I did some work for a company called 133 Art. The first thing I did for them was a cover. It wound up being the cover to One Nation Safe House. I actually won a Glyph award. Uh, and the thing is that the artwork they used was like a sketch cover that I did, and it was good. It was fine, but they hired a colorist who is a better colorist than I will ever be in my life. You know, I think it was. I'm not going to try and say his name because I'm gonna mess it up, but he's from the Philippines, and he was incredible. And that company I've done, or just companies that I've done cover work for, I tell them, I'm like, look, you can pay me to be the colorist or whatever. I'll take your money and I'll give you, the best product I can give you. But you're going to get more bang probably if you hire a colorist and you just let me mess with these pencils and inks because I'm sick, when it comes to that. And because so again, like to the point that you were making, I remember Scott Kurtz and some other guys did a book about making web comics, and a long time ago, and they said it's good for you to do all the roles, but it's okay, it's good because when you hire somebody, you'll know why they need to get paid. Like you'll know like what a headache it is to deal with it. I built my own websites and done the SEO and all the whatever. And it's like when I'm at the point to pay people to do that, I'm going to pay them just because they can provide a lot of value. And one of the values is just I don't have to do it, and that's one of the things like I see a lot, like when people are trying to hire somebody to do like, people come to me and they want, like, again, that's as a writer or a publisher, and you want to pay somebody to do the art. The art is so time consuming. Like, why would you try and pay somebody very little? Like, that just doesn't, I get that you're like in a scarcity mindset yourself. Like, I don't have that much money, blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't know. Like, it just doesn't make sense, in the end, if you're planning on, and it's a red flag to me because that's somebody that doesn't, understand making an investment. If you're going to do comic books, great art is an investment that you will get the money back if you know how to sell a product. If you don't know how to sell a product, that's a whole different conversation. I don't know why you're so focused on fix. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But I think so again, when writers come to me, a lot of times they get discouraged because I start telling them how they can make money just with their writing. I'm like, you need to learn these marketing tricks, and then you need to do these things, because as a writer, writing is a superpower. You know, especially if you care about anything, because that's the other thing is like empathy is dope. Because if you put empathy in the way you make your product, um, it it does wind up like people when they who are the right person for it, they don't you don't have to fight with them to buy it. So if it's like different things. It's like, look, take what you care about the most and then make products that are driven into that, because it's easy to have empathy in a realm where you understand everybody, you understand the players. But a big part of it, again, is to stop thinking about, like, if something doesn't work out in your favor, to stop thinking about the other person in such a negative way. Like, first, you don't know why they're doing whatever they're doing. And maybe they're a jerk and they're selfish or whatever, but maybe they're afraid that they're not going to make their money back. Maybe they just don't have a lot, but they're going out and they're saying, you know what, I'm going to make a comic anyways, or I'm going to make or whatever, and this is how much I have. you know Try and get people to deal with you honestly and deal with you um in a forthright way, so that then you can have conversations about why it might not be enough, what they're offering. Well, I don't know, can you do this because this and this? Or I tell you what, on when we do this part of it, I'll help. If you can get closer to my rate, then I can help you with this and this on the other end. you know and then don't be afraid to walk away. No is very powerful, and no makes room, especially when you're talking about comics, or making comics, even as a freelancer, or even like as a freelancer. um, if you're anything like me, a comic is a big project. It's going to take a lot of your time, and any time that you're focused on making a comic for a client, you can't be working for another client or doing another thing or doing something that you wanted to do. So it's not always the best trade-off to take the lesser thing. And that's not for me. Like, the era of being mad at people who can't afford to pay me what I want is kind of over. You know what I mean? So I know a lot of people are in that space. I understand it well. And I think teaching you to take responsibility is not like saying that you don't have that you shouldn't be mad, but and I get mad at things sometimes too. So uh people will tell you not to have a chip on your shoulder, but they're dropping rocks on your head all the time. So that's where the chips come from. They come from the fact that you're dealing in a world that's a wild west. Comics is a very wild situation. And a lot of people like just have the gall, to say certain things. I think that artists should operate with a certain amount of audacity. All artists, whatever kind of art they make. And you can certainly have humility, and kind of a balance, empathy. You know what I'm saying? You can have a balance, but also have audacity. Like, look, I'm good at what I'm doing, and I'm, if you take the time to try and create a product that has value, you should have, you should be like, yeah, I mean, I provide value. If you can't see it, that's cool. I take some responsibility if you can't see it, but also it's only so much work I could put into educating an individual. So if they don't, and some things are just not a good fit, and that's okay.
Yeah, no doubt. We have a question from one of the viewers, Van Illustration, also known as Clay. He says, how do you best present your art to a potential client or employer I'm curious if you have your own website, use sites like Behance, social media profiles, or have a physical portfolio.
Mm-hmm. Um. Yeah. I. Right now, I'm really more about tailoring my presentation. I do have my website. I never update it. Uh, so I'll point people to my Facebook page. Like that's I'll point people to my blogs or whatever, because I'm heavy into blogging with art and stuff. The best thing that to me, um, and sometimes I'm dealing with business clients where I'm gonna go in, so I take the kind of leather portfolio thing with prints in it. Um, so yes to all that. I don't really mess with Behance or whatever. Like I found it to be too much trouble. But I mean, it would depend on the kind of clients. If the clients that I was after, they're agencies. Like if you're trying to do agencies and stuff, they're really like, Behance or whatever. My mindset about this comes from a philosophy of you want to present yourself as a unique value proposition. um I would recommend that if you're going out and getting clients, you're putting yourself in a unique position that they are not likely to know anything about you other than what you tell them, right? So you can it's just like if you apply for a job, they on Indeed or something like that, they say, do you want to write a cover letter, and it's optional, and you click pass and you don't write a cover letter. I know I don't, because I'm lazy when it comes to applying for jobs. But when I'm on my A game and I'm applying for a job, always write a cover letter, because you get an opportunity. You're a stranger, you're going to tell them who you are. And so I would say that the best thing and the easiest thing you could do is make an individualized presentation for each client that you're applying for. If you have a body of work like I do, I've been drawing since, before the internet, before Al Gore invented the internet, right? And so I like to, when I apply for a client, I like to give them a portfolio that I made specifically for them. And that's not really that complicated of a thing to do. I'm just saying, you can go, half the time what I do is I go to my Facebook page, download individual drawings, and then, make them into a PDF. Photoshop, it's create a presentation, Alt FUP, I want to say, and it'll make a presentation. I put them all together, the images, and then just make a presentation. And then I say, okay, here's some examples. If I've done that kind of work before that they're asking for, I'll show them specific examples of that work. If I haven't, because sometimes you're going to want to do something you haven't ever done before, right? I'll show them what I have done, and I'll show them this. I would use this same approach, or here's some different styles that I employ that you can rock with, and then I just show them. Having things available online is a good idea for your own expediency. I think getting lazy about just pointing them to your profile, it is lazy, and so being lazy almost never a good idea.
Yeah.
In life, you know what I mean? So if you feel like you're being lazy, you should not be lazy, But
I think,
it doesn't have to be hard work, you know what I'm saying? But just use the tools that you have at your disposal.
yeah, I think a lot of, it's interesting, what you're kind of saying. It really, like, because this is where I was thinking too, is like you we're talking about empathy and building
Mhm.
trust, and trying to see from the client's point of view.
Mhm.
And so catering a specific portfolio to them makes a lot of sense. And I've heard this from people who hire artists as well. They complain about the fact that they get tons of portfolios, and you can tell by their portfolio that they didn't do any research whatsoever on the company they were applying for. And
Right.
it's like, well, if we do marketing and stuff for, like, with, like, whatever, if we do some kind of, you know, let's say, we do video games or whatever, and we do a lot of, you know, hard hitting like fantasy like type of stuff with like really like monstrous creatures and stuff, and you send me your portfolio that has like all of these like cutesy like Pokemon type of characters and stuff like that. Well, you're not even trying to, it doesn't even look
Right.
like you're trying to actually help us,
Right.
so you gotta try to cater, and if you don't do the kind of work that they're looking for, or you're not interested in doing that, then they're probably not a good match for you anyways.
Right. And that's okay. You know what I mean? Like everything isn't for you. You know what I mean? Or if you want that, if that's something that you desperately want, I mean, start thinking of it like, why would the person choose you? So one of the posts that one of the comic strips that I drew one time is because I was listening to a podcast, and a guy said, he was talking about freelancers. He said, freelancers do this. They say, can you give me a job, and can you also do all the work for me? You know, and that's what artists are real good for, that, because we think like our dream life is to just draw whatever we want and to get paid for it. And I actually do that a little bit, but uh, that's not what it is most of the time. And even people who pay you are not paying you. They're generally not going to pay you to just do whatever you want and then figure out how they benefit. Even like my fans or whatever who buy the stuff that I just make up off out of my head, like when I talk to somebody that I want to become a customer, I mean, you're gonna have a lot of likers, what I call likers, people that like you, like your work, like everything you do, but they in their mind, like they're like, why would I, they never cross that valley of why they should give you money for that, and so in the when it comes to that stuff, it's like part of your job is to say, here's why it matters to you. Here's why you should care about what I'm doing. That should be something that's always a part of your presentation. When you're making your art, that's just for, your art, that's fine that you're not thinking about the whole world, but you definitely need to learn how to add on to your list of whatever, and this is why you should care. I'm doing this and this. I mean, whether it's your comics or your art that you're going to hang in galleries and stuff like that, is making people care is part of the art. If you make so when it so certainly when it comes to anything where you want people to hire you, business is about, the way that money works is that people pay for value. And businesses, and I mean, if you can figure out how to show that you get results, that's again why that cover letter is going to matter. Like, what results did you get for your clients? What results are you going to try and get for this client? I think if you're the less that you understand why what you do is important to the person that's buying it, the less you're going to get paid.
Yeah.
Because and it's fair for you to get paid less because they're doing the work. So if you go work at McDonald's, talked about McDonald's twice. You go work at Wendy's, like, it's not getting McDonald's all this free. That job is heavily designed, especially if you work at one of these places where there's a picture of a hamburger on the cash register and they just press the picture, or whatever. Like, it's heavily designed. I worked in call centers for a long time. And when I first started, we used mainframe systems, like the black screen with the red or green letters. And you have to memorize command codes and stuff like that to make the system do anything, CRTL, type, number, letter, and that makes it do something, slash this, slash that. I memorized all these codes and stuff. And then while I was doing those kinds of jobs, I noticed like they were bringing in Windows systems to lay over the top of it. So now it's like to make a phone call, you press a picture of a phone. You don't have to put no command, this and that, or whatever. You don't have to memorize anything. You just have to have eyeballs. you know, and be able to kind of conceptually go, well, a picture of a phone might make something phony happen. You know, a picture of a, you know, a big X makes something stop. You know, a picture of, and I mean, it will have words, but you know, like anybody, like you could bring somebody in 5th grade, they could probably do this job as far as the using the computer. You know, then they're just hiring for knowledge or a person who, and the more complex that, the more design that something gets, they're not even hiring for knowledge anymore. They're hiring for mindset. They're hiring for, if I tell this person that they can't get off early to take care of their children or something, they're still going to work. You know, I can make them act in their own self-interest. That's the whole feature. That's your whole thing, whatever. But so what you're doing when you, to get back to the subject, what you're doing when you say, I only want to do this part of it, is you're requiring the person who pays you to figure out everything about what value, you know, how to get sales, how to get money, how to get, you know, views. Like, they have to understand all that. So all they need is a person to draw pictures. There's not really a shortage of people to draw pictures. And so, and especially, and this is again, like back to the question, like if your portfolio is on Behance and you send a person who's thinking, who wants to hire you, you send them to a portfolio website full of artists, in my opinion, that's dumb. Because you're basically saying, I am a dime a dozen. And I mean, I don't care who you are. There's a lot of people on Behance. There's a lot of people on Behance draw you up under the table. And I'm saying that because I know there's a lot of people on Behance that draw me up under the table. And they're in the Philippines and they're in, you know, Venezuela or whatever, and they'll do it for nothing. And I mean, it isn't unfair for them to do it for nothing because the cost of living is different. There's all kinds of things happening. And, you know, all that, you know, waving the flag, America, America. You know what? People that are in business, they trying to figure out how they can pay their payroll, how they can pay all the bills that's associated with it, all the tools that you're not willing to buy, all the marketing that you're not willing to do. They got to do if they want to be successful. And the ones who really want to make money with their business are making choices all the time. So can you take that choice out of their mind a little bit of what, can I get somebody cheaper? At least maybe they're lazy enough that if you send them your portfolio, they're not going to go compare it to somebody else. And maybe they'll just hire you on the spot and just be like, man, I just need somebody who can do this. And you send them something, you send them a portfolio and you send them a cover letter that shows an understanding of the industry that they're in. And you talk about the demographics of their ideal customer in your cover letter. Like, you understand how to make art for this market.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer. Even if they got like a whole bunch of people to look at, they're like, man, maybe we should just hire this dude. He seems like he knows.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, hey, you want to hire me for something? Let me send you to a website full of my competition. Like, that's just crazy.
I mean, that's just not that smart. I mean, it's and you know why people do it? They do it because it's easy. You know, artists are scared to be on their own. So they go to an artist community, you know, and they're like, look, but then they're like, but I'm special. And so that's a big part of why people are so infatuated with style, so infatuated with having the best style they can have, because they're special. I'm special. Like, that's how you're trying to be special, but you're putting yourself on the shelf at Walmart.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, now you're counting on the client to know why it's a good idea to pay you better, instead of positioning yourself better. So just positioning can get you more money. So when people are talking about rates and stuff like that, a lot of times people who are hiring, like, they don't know what the rates are. They don't know where the cheaper artists are. They don't know, you know. Yeah. But the ones who are on Behance just looking around, they know, you know. Yeah. And it's like, you know, so like I said, I mean, I did it and I did it. And so I did it. So it's not like I'm trying to make people feel bad, but it's just like, to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But, you know, the flip side of that besides the stuff that I might say makes it a bad idea, is if it has like features that makes it easy for you to do the marketing that you need to do, then do it. Never like, because one of the choices between doing something, like I could tell you this is a bad idea, so don't do it, and you're not going to necessarily do what I said. You're just going to do nothing. I don't want you to do nothing. Being on Behance and DeviantArt and Upwork and Fiverr and everywhere else that I think is, because the Behance ain't bad, but I mean, to me, it just, when it comes to the work of putting stuff, like if you have a whole bunch of stuff on Behance, then more power to you. If it has a lot of awesome features, ArtStation, whatever all these sites are, there's new ones all the time. And there's no, that's better than nothing. But you got to figure out, like, what is the upside for me? If you know what the upside is for you better than I know of being on those platforms, then feel free to use it, and with my respect, because I don't know why I would do that, other than that I was just scared to do something by myself. People are like I'm still, one of my websites are mostly all blogger blogs, you know what I'm saying? And people are like, oh, well, Blogger is whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but I get work doing it that way,
Yeah.
So people like, oh, well, like when you asked me the question and people were probably wanting a fancy answer. And I said, man, sometimes I just send people to my Facebook page if I don't know what they want. And it's kind of hard to get them to explain like what they're looking for. I just send them to my Facebook page, especially it's like somebody I think they're not that serious or whatever. I send them to and they just want to be entertained by good drawings or whatever. So I just send them to my Facebook page. I might even send them the link that goes straight to the photos gallery,
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
your art is what's going to sell you. And it's like, also, like I said, I am very much always looking for ways to not be a commodity product that is a one size fits all. And I'm looking for people where what I do turns them on. So sending them to a place, I get nervous when people are like, well, you should really be on this platform, and it's an all artist platform. I'm like, it might be a good idea, but I'm not usually in a hurry to do it.
Well, that's the thing too that I tell people all the time is, we get caught up on like this whole thing of like, well, what marketing strategy works? Like, what should I do to do this? What kind of portfolio should I do? How, and the truth is that they all work.
Mm-hmm. Right.
For the most part, they all work if you work them. And
right.
You can use Blogger if you want. There's no reason. I mean, you don't have to send them to any website. Just send them some photos, some images through email. Like
right.
that's all
right.
you really need to do. Like, so there's a lot of different ways to go about it, and whichever one works for you, work it. Make it happen. Christopher W says, I have many written stories laid out. Let me show it here. And I'm having trouble on if I should start a company or just stay as a solo storyteller. I think that that's kind of one of those things. Personally, I think it just depends on what you want, like what's your goals and stuff like that. We're kind of talking about like marketing these things to clients a lot. And in that case, your client, do you want your client to be a company that, sells books, or do you want your client to be an audience that wants your specific books? Like, you kind of have both in both cases to a certain degree. Well, in one of the cases, but we're kind of here, we're talking about like clients and stuff. So it's like, what do you want to do? And then you can kind of make that decision. It's, again, no decision is right or wrong, really, when it comes, there are right and wrong things in the world, but many of our decisions are not right and wrong. It's better that you make a decision.
Right. I was waiting for my turn to speak to say that. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, the thing is, like, we often overestimate the impact of what we do anyways, right? So let me tell you something. No matter what you do, chances are you're not going to have so much of an impact that you cannot totally reverse your decision in 6 months. Like I would dare to say that almost everybody on here, unless you saw me on a previous time of talking to Marshall, you still have no idea who I am. And I made plenty of money making comics, and you have no idea who I am. What I've done in the past don't matter at all, except for what I present to you. You know, if you show up on a website and I'm on there, like that's what you know about me. I've been doing stuff like during there was a time period when Marshall met me. I was working doing freelance making comics for e-learning company. And I had a friend who had an Image book, you know, like so he did a comic for Image, and I was working at an e-learning company. No one ever heard of me. I was making more money than him making comics.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like that's just, you know, it's whatever. You know, like I self-published. Me and my friends self-published. We had a nationally. I watch people say I can't. You know, like big publishers that are doing good. You know, like indie publishers, Iron Circus. You know, she was on a thing talking about like trouble that she's been having with Diamond, like getting books distributed through Diamond. I had a book distributed through Diamond.
Yeah.
You know, you know, don't look at the notes. Don't look at the thing at the bottom where it says what my name is. What's my last name? You can't even remember. Like I'm nobody to you, you know. So the decisions that I make, you know, I could reverse them. Like if I say, oh, so another thing, like I have stories that I have published multiple times. Such and such number one comes out again. I went back and changed stuff that was in the story. You know, I remember what they call mini comics now. We used to call them ash cans back in the olden days, right? But it's mini comics. There's a story that I put out as a mini in a mini comic. Then I fixed on it as I learned, and I put it out again in the anthology. And me and my friends self-published. Then, like a couple years later, I put it out again. You know, with more. You know, with I added pages in it. You know, my friends like we call it like 3.0 of that same story. You know. So it's number one, you know, 0.3 or whatever. And, you know, and so my fans think that's hilarious. And sometimes they'll buy the same thing over again just to see what did I add or what did I change. And so then whenever I started doing my magazine, Ghetto Manga, I put that story in there in color. So it was in black and white all those times. And people were like, man, this is great. You know, it's whatever. I was like, yeah, because I took the feedback from when I put it out 3 previous times and I kept fixing it. It's 8-page story, you know, and I just kept fixing it. And it's, and, you know, people, and I made money off of it over and over, you know, redoing it. And people like, you know, because there's rules in comics. It's like the idea that I republish something, people are like, you know, that's whatever, you know, you got to abandon your old work. You can't keep making, no. Marvel and DC put out, you know, new volumes that have the old stuff in them. They do it differently than they used to. But if you go back to like, you know, the 70s and 80s, like they were constantly republishing and repackaging stuff and selling it again because it's still great entertainment, you know. So, but the thing about it is, when I bought Giant Slash X-Men number 1, I thought it was new.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was a reprint. Did it matter to me? No. When I found out, I was like, you could do that? Like, that was kind of my thing, but I didn't care. I mean, I still reread it. Teen Titans versus X-Men is one of the greatest comic books ever made. You know, please, if you see it, buy it. It's awesome. Don't be like, oh, well, you know, this is a reprint or whatever. Like, that don't got nothing to do with enjoying comics. So I think there's a lot of reasons why you would choose to create an entity that you publish under if you're self-publishing, that doesn't have nothing to do with your name. I think there's a lot of benefits to putting your face forward with your work too. But I think it's more important that you just, if you have something that's ready to go, get it out there. You know, and if you say, man, I should have published it under like you could change the name to your company just because you feel like it, you know, Like, I don't like that name anymore. I'm gonna change it. You know, you could change the name of the characters in the book. You can reprint the book and change their dialogue or whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. It's yours. You know, that's one of the so I have friends, like I said, you know, who had did stuff with, you know, Image and Dark Horse and stuff like that. And one of the things that was the most like horrifying to me was a person who had put out a book, and this was a writer, which made it even more horrifying, that he had put out a really good comic. That was a with a small publisher, but the small publisher, he owned the characters and stuff, but the publisher owned the book. So they put it out and it sold out. Like, and he sold out of all his comps, and now it's out of print. And I said, when are you going to go back to press on that book? And he goes, well, I can't. You know, the publisher doesn't think it's worth it, you know, because it took a long time to sell, you know, a small print run. So to them, it's not worth it. They moved on to other things and blah, blah, blah. Now, beside the fact that I don't see the business sense for a small publisher to not keep things that they publish in print, go back to print, even if you're printing a big print run, and then just stack them up in a air conditioned, you know, storage facility.
Yeah.
And it's just an asset. But you know what? They were a dumb publisher, and a lot of publishers are dumb, you know. So it's like he's in a position where he just wants to have books that he could take around. And one of the best books in his catalog, he has no power to put that book out himself again. And it's like he couldn't even put it on a print on demand place, you know, and just sell them, you know, or just, you know, have 10 copies to have one more item on his table. Or a person like who bought the book, you know, a long time ago, and then they lost their copy and they want another one, you know, and they see him at a convention and he can't sell them nothing. Like, to me, that's the beauty of self-publishing. If you want to reprint your book with all the pages, you know, you're going to go in and flip all the pages and flip the dialogue so you can sell it as a manga to read, you know, Japanese or style. You could do that. It's dumb. That'd be a dumb thing to do, and it'll look weird and everything. But you know, but you could do that if you want to. I know a guy in Canada. He published his book, and then because he was getting a lot of customers that were international customers, and outside of the United States, manga is way more popular than American comics. They liked his characters and stuff, but they were really, you know, they're used to reading a certain way. He republished, he had 3 graphic novels out, you know, 250 pages. He reprinted all of them with the panels flipped. So he went through and you can't just turn it backwards because it doesn't work. So it's like he had to go in, flip the artwork, then flip, you know, change the dialogue so it reads from, you know, right to left or whatever, and all the work associated with that. Like, it was crazy, but he had the power to do that because it's his.
Yeah.
He could do that. Like, I think that's crazy or whatever, but you know, he could do it. And it's like, when it comes to what's a good idea and what's not, you're going to learn a lot in your business, and some things that make sense right now to you, whether you choose one or the other. Cause I don't know. I don't know. It just depends on what you like, you know, like that's a very cosmetic, it's not as important as you probably even think it is. Like, all the stuff, like when your question, I was like, I don't know why that matters, but you know, okay, I've done both. So it's like, I've done both, and you know, it kind of, people who want to know, like, you can have a brand, right? Like, that's one of the benefits of a brand is that you can then step out of the brand and it's still as valuable from a, you know, your customers will value it just as much. You know, Marvel Comics, it was a long time where Stan Lee wasn't really doing nothing, but his name was still in there, you know, Stan Lee Presents or whatever. And I'm sure he got money for just being Stan Lee or whatever. Marvel Comics, you know, marched on. I'm assuming Stan Lee made money. I don't even know like what, but it's like your brand can move on without you if it's just a brand that's just a name. The flip side of that is that people buy from people. So when you're small, taking the benefit of being small is your humanity. There's a lot of psychological stuff going on with consumers. about buying from a corporate entity versus buying from a person. And so if you want a mass audience, having a brand might be a good idea. Having a strong brand, so that people recognize the brand. Um, it's my opinion that the brand of the characters is a lot more in comics. I'm making assumptions about what your comic is, and forgive me if I'm missing it on that. Having characters that have a very strong brand is much more important when you're thinking pure business, I think. But because at one point Marvel was gonna go bankrupt. And I know some people that have a fair amount of money. I had a friend who was like, man, I want to buy some Marvel characters. Like if they get where they're selling the assets and they're liquidating the IPs, there's characters that he wanted to buy. Like, it's like he wanted to buy some of the black characters, and he's like, what if I owned, for example, I'll just say, what if he owned Luke Cage? What if he owned like even Spider-Man? Like right now the thing with Sony and Marvel, it's essentially because Marvel had sold their movie rights to a lot of different people when the company wasn't doing well before Disney bought them. So they had sold off these and that was the thing to do with those kind of characters. So, and the reason nobody wants, if Marvel was getting ready to go out of business, I don't think that people would be running. It's as powerful and as strong and as emotional of a brand as Marvel Comics is. I think that way more people would want to buy the X-Men or Spider-Man or Daredevil, than would want to buy the brand of Marvel. Yeah. The reason why Disney bought Marvel is because it contained those characters. Yeah. Now, as an independent person, I think that you have a lot. So if you have plans to kind of be a lot of different things, then putting your face up front might be the smartest thing you can do. I just think if you're making superhero comics, especially, concentrating your like kind of brain power on making your superheroes as cool and iconic as you can make them and the stories associated with them. But this decision about whether to do a personal brand, a strong personal brand versus it, a business owner would probably tell you in 2019, having a strong personal brand is the best thing you can do. Because you can then make money a lot of different kinds of ways off of your own self, but I think that you're going to want to, whichever one you do, you're going to want to develop all those things. If you have a really strong brand for your company or, for your whatever, then go with it. But just also, make sure that, you make yourself famous with your art, but I think that decision, don't let it be a point of paralysis. Just go ahead and if you have finished a comic, because it sounds like you're saying you finished the comic, that is an enormous asset, and you need to be running victory laps and corking, popping champagne and selling comics. You don't need to be worrying about these kind of issues, because there's people who are experts on branding that know more about branding than me and Marshall put together, who, if you do a really good job of getting your comic out there, they'll come to you. One of the things, like when people ask me, how do I get published? I tell them, the shortest way to get published in 2019 is to self-publish. I was a Kickstarter power backer for a long time. I still get emails from when I was like backing so many people on Kickstarter. I love Kickstarter. I love Patreon. I love supporting artists. That's just part of my DNA or whatever. Even Starving Artists Anonymous just came about because I just want help, And so when I was doing a lot of that, I noticed a pattern that if you run a Kickstarter that succeeds almost on any level above like very small, so I watch, especially like people that did a Kickstarter for a book that wasn't quite finished, or for animation that wasn't quite finished. because a lot of times people would do Kickstarter for anime to do an animated pilot. Bunch of them on. I could think of at least one that's on Netflix right now. And one thing that invariably happens is in the space between when the Kickstarter succeeds and when the thing comes out, it winds up coming out later than planned because companies start showing up to buy it, either to publish it or to buy it outright or to do it, whatever. LaShawn Thomas Cannon Busters, people complain about how long it took. Business is the reason why it took a long time, because after his Kickstarter succeeded, they started getting waves of different companies that wanted to be behind them. And you'll find the same thing is true with comics. If 9 times out of 10, if you show that you know how to engage fans and how to develop a following that will pay for something, publishers will show up. And then you can decide which publisher you like, as opposed to applying to publishers and kind of begging them, because they've had the experience of bringing people on and then they can't deliver. They can't make a comic, or they could see that you already engage an audience, and that's the kind of, you take responsibility, and that's somebody that they're going to want to work with. So he took the name of the person off the screen, so I forgot your name. I want to congratulate you if you've completed a comic or you're even close, Christopher. Victory Labs, pop the champagne or the non-alcoholic, whatever, if you don't drink. Don't let nobody take away from you that you have made something. You have an asset, and figuring out the best way to sell it is a good thing to be thinking about. But most of the time, I think that people overestimate making the right decision. If you can get it out of your head that there's a perfect way to do stuff and just get it out there and do it. I know you probably already have that mentality because you finished a comic and you're not still going around and around perfecting your art. You're like, look, this is my art. It's good. Here, take it. Don't avoid the fear. Don't let the fear of doing it wrong keep you from getting it out there.
Yeah.
So we said a lot, and there's a lot more that could be said, but you've done a good thing already. Just get it out there and get some fans out of it. Get some money out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree. I think I really like the idea too of remembering that the characters are actually kind of, in some ways, can be more important. I mean, I think of like Harry Potter, and like sometimes I forget who wrote Harry Potter, even though I know it's J.K. Rowling. Sometimes I can't think of her name, but I can always think of the name Harry Potter. So
even better example than that. If you like Captain Marvel, not the Marvel one, but Shazam, DC didn't make that.
Yeah,
it was another company. If you like Watchmen, frankly, they're ripped off from and they're specifically designed because DC would not let Alan Moore use the actual characters. All the characters in Watchmen were not based on DC characters. They were based on another company's characters that DC bought that company after the company failed. Those characters are enduring characters. Captain Atom, Blue Beetle. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But the idea is that Marvel and DC buy characters from other companies sometimes. Because that's how valuable that they already had Superman. They could have just took Captain Marvel and threw him under under thing. But there were people who liked Captain Marvel better than Superman, and they didn't need to understand why to say this character is worth having.
Yeah.
The story of of Captain Marvel and all that is like one of my favorite fascinating stories or whatever. But again, I couldn't tell you who created the Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
But at the same time, everybody knows Shazam, like everybody, because it's iconic. He says a word, that's kind of a funny word. and then he turns into basically, you know, Magic Superman.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, definitely like your characters, if you do it right, especially superhero characters who are naturally iconic, you know, um, those characters are going to be your bread and butter, no matter how you structure your company, whether you do creator owned, whether the company as an entity owns the characters, however you do it, those characters need to be iconic. Now, if you're like me and you generate tons and tons of characters and you're like, well, you know, I'm going to move from one to the next, that might be a clue that you should create a company. But even with that, yeah, we I don't know. I hope I helped you. Because I don't think you can go wrong if everything you do is awesome and you make good decisions whenever people with money show up and want to, you know, negotiate with you about, you know, using your characters, about publishing you, you know, about distributing you. You got to make decisions that are good for you, and don't be shy and get your money, you know, because they're showing up because they see dollar signs when they see what you made. So again, kudos, Christopher. Good luck.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with your sentiment as, you know, if you've made a comic, like I applaud you. Like I know how hard it is to make comics, and even if you're making stick figures, it's not easy. So,
right. There's a lot to the art, you know what I mean? That's invisible to that. If you did it right, your consumer is not even going to think about it, and they're not going to thank you for how good your storytelling is. They're not going to thank you for all the things that you thought of so that they could be absorbed into your story. You know, there's a million ways easier to make money than making comics. I admire anybody that tries to do it. So anyway.
Yep, absolutely. So I think we've gone through a lot of things. There's still a couple of things from the chat that I could have addressed, but I do really appreciate you guys all hanging out with us. But time is running a little thin for me, at least. And so, you know, thank you once again, Samax, for coming on. And
sure.
Yeah, just everybody, like, if you've got anything from the stuff Samax has been saying, definitely check out the links below. There's a lot of cool resources. And man, I was reading this I just started reading a random chapter of this book that you sent, and I just couldn't stop reading. I had to stop because I had to set up this video. But you know, I can't wait to go through the rest. And there's so many resources within it because you know, there's all kinds of things that are linked within the book. In the PDF. So you're going to get a lot out of this if you want to make a career with your art. There's so much good advice in there. So I definitely recommend checking out that link. Once again, Samax, where can people find you before we head?
Yeah, man. Like I said, the best resource for you guys. I hope that everybody can, you know, Starving Artists Anonymous .com. I hope that everybody will check us out. You know what I mean? Check it out. I put a lot of effort into just being able to be a resource for artists of all kinds, and that includes you guys, you writers. You know, I think that writing and being a musician is an artist. You know, just like you know, drawing or whatever. I don't think that there's any kind of art that you can't build a business around. One thing that you can do if at starvingartistanonymous.com, I don't know if the links show up on the mobile site, but if you go on your computer, there's it says book a call where you can actually make an appointment and talk to me about your business. We'll do like a half hour where I'll ask you questions. You know, I'll just let you tell me about your art, and then we can figure out like some next steps for you. But people that don't want to talk to me, I don't take it personal. There's a blog. You can buy the book, which is I just really try to jam with all the knowledge that I could. You know, like he said, the book isn't super long, but it links out to other resources too, you know, to other blogs, to other things. So there's a lot of information. you know, so you can learn as much as you want to learn from that. And I do coaching and different stuff like that. So starvingartistanonymous.com for that. If you just want to look at my art and then say, well, you know, this guy has a big head, I want to see, can he really draw? You're going to go to facebook.com or instagram.com/Samax Amen, you know, all one word. And you can look at my stuff there. Once you get involved with me, I am a bottomless pit. You know what I mean? You can be as involved with me as you want to be. I've been generating information and art for a very long time, so there's a lot to look at.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Samax, and thank you everybody for hanging out with us and everybody on the replay. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments. I noticed in the last videos that Samax has been involved in. He's been, you know, checking out the comments too. So
Absolutely.
Definitely go in there and we'll see what we can do to help you out. Thank you once again, and we'll talk to you guys on the next one.
All right.